The Mastiff used to deal more damage than a Kraber headshot. And did you know that the charge rifle used to be hit scan? These are 12 of the most broken weapons in Apex Legends history in no particular order. Let's start with the Bowcheck bow. When this weapon first came out in season 9, it was terrifying. Think about how the bow works today. You can hear where the shots are coming from and the arrows fly a bit slower. Right now, the most damage you can do in one shot is about 108. And that sounds strong, right? Well, if you compare it to the season 9 version of the Bowcheck bow, when it was released, a body shot did 70 damage and a headshot did 123 damage. That means that even if you had blue armor, you were knocked down in just 2 hits. It was way easier to use back then too. You could carry as many arrows as you needed, and the hitbox for the arrows was actually bigger, so it was easy to hit your opponent. But the worst part about the Bowcheck was the sound, because there was none. The arrows were basically silent. Today, if you get hit by an arrow, you usually have time to run behind a rock or use your abilities to heal, because it's only really dangerous when it's charged up and has that explosion on it. Back then, nah, because by the time you realized you were being shot, you were already down. And it was even worse if there was a whole team using the Bowcheck. You basically had no chance to fight back. Playing against the Bowcheck felt unfair. You could go from full health to game over in literally seconds without even seeing the enemy. For a while, every single player was running a Bowcheck as their main weapon because it was way too good. It was so strong that the devs, they basically stepped in immediately. It got its first big nerf 1 week after it came out, and it definitely saved the season. But players from season 9 still remember how crazy that week was. While the Bowcheck was scary because it killed you fast with just a few silent shots, this next weapon was a nightmare for a completely different reason. It wasn't about being quiet or accurate. It was about never ending. We have to talk about the season 8 Spitfire. Now, if you look at the damage numbers today, you might be confused. Right now, the Spitfire deals 21 damage per bullet. Back in season 8, it actually did less damage. It only did 19 damage per bullet. So you might say to yourself, wait, isn't this new one just better? But you have to remember the big update in season 24. All the weapons got damage buffs. So today, 21 damage is just normal. But back in season 8, before all the buffs, doing 19 damage per bullet was huge. It was way stronger than almost anything else available at the time. It was like bringing a modern weapon into a match from the past. The real problem though wasn't just the damage with the Spitfire, it was how easy it is to use. Today, the Spitfire shakes a bit when you shoot it. The recoil is kind of hard to control, and it's actually difficult to hit targets from far away. But the season 8 version of the Spitfire literally didn't move. You could just hold the trigger down and the crosshair stayed perfectly still. Then there was the magazine size. This thing held 55 bullets. If you had a purple mag, you could literally miss half your shots and still have enough ammo to knock somebody, or 2 people if you're lucky. So while normally in a regular fight, you're having to manage your reloads and get behind cover, when you had a Spitfire at the time, you could just walk down your enemy and never let go of the trigger. The Spitfire back then felt impossible to beat because it didn't even punish players for having bad aim. You could just spray in the general direction of your enemy and they might die somehow. The Spitfire was frustrating because it felt like the developers made it too strong on purpose. But sometimes a weapon gets too overpowered, not because of a buff, but because the game itself breaks. That's gonna bring us onto one of the wildest glitches we've ever seen. In season 6, the Sentinel was supposed to be a slow bolt action sniper rifle. You know how it goes. You shoot the weapon and you do that whole long reload animation thing. It's what makes the gun a sniper rifle and not a bazooka. But players found a bug that completely changed the rules of the gun. If you press the reload button and the shoot button at the exact same time in a specific rhythm, the game got confused. It basically skipped the animation where the character pulls the bolt back. This meant that you could fire the Sentinel as fast as you could do that glitch, almost like it was an automatic assault rifle. The Sentinel does 70 damage for a body shot. Now imagine a weapon like that firing as fast as a flatline. If you ran into somebody using this glitch, your armor basically didn't matter. Purple armor, red armor, it was all gone in less than a second. The worst part is you didn't need rare loot to do it. You could just find the Sentinel and boom, now you're shooting a flatline that does 70 damage per bullet. Glitches like the machine gun Sentinel were scary because they were not supposed to be in the game. Getting hit by things like those were completely unexpected. But the next item on our list was working exactly how the developers intended. We're gonna move away from guns for a minute and talk about grenades. If you play Apex today, getting stuck with an arc star sucks. It cracks your shield and slows you down, but you can usually slide away or hide or escape. You have a chance to survive. Back in the early days though, getting stuck by an arc star was basically a game over screen. It was easily the strongest grenade in the history of the game. Back then, when an arc star stuck you, it dealt huge damage on impact, and the explosion damage was enough to strip your entire shield away. It did way more damage to shields than it does now. If you had 3 arc stars in your backpack, you could win a fight without ever firing a single bullet. You just threw them at the enemy team and they would be stuck standing still. The only thing worse than getting stuck by an arc star is getting shot by a weapon that shoots arc stars at you. That brings us to a much newer addition to the list, and it takes the idea of stunning enemies to a whole different level. We usually think of the R9 as just a fast submachine gun. You point it, you shoot it, and the magazine empties in like 2 seconds. But this specific event version of the weapon broke all the rules. When you held the Bird of Prey R9, you literally ran faster, already making you incredibly hard to hit in a regular one-on-one. What made it even worse was that the weapon had built-in missile launchers. So while you were cosplaying as a regular civilian defending yourself, anybody holding a Bird of Prey R9 was basically playing as the Flash with the grenade launcher. You would look at your enemy, they would fly around you, stun you, and run circles before you could even shoot 3 bullets. It was super fun to use, but playing against it was a headache, making it the perfect example of an event weapon. It was designed to be overpowered just for the fun of it, without ever considering balance. This next weapon was different because there was basically nowhere to hide. We're talking about the flying Sheila glitch. This is one of those things that sound fake if you weren't there to see it, but it was 100% real. Usually Rampart has to place her minigun on the flat ground, and once she's on it, she can't move and she's a sitting duck. But players realized that if Crypto took his drone out, Rampart could place the turret right on top of the drone. Then she could hop on the minigun. Now all of a sudden, she's gone from an immobile background piece to a flying tank. The Crypto would fly the drone high up in the air, zooming around the map while Rampart sat on top of it, raining down thousands and thousands of bullets on everyone below. It was basically like fighting an attack helicopter or a kill streak from Call of Duty. If you were on the ground victim to this, it was a total nightmare. This drone could fly over walls, mountains, hills, buildings, doors, anything you can think of, and you were basically never safe because even if you tried to hide behind a door, the Sheila could just shoot it down and chase you. This glitch was patched pretty quickly, but for a few days, the skies belonged to Rampart and Crypto. The flying minigun was annoying because it felt like you were being watched from everywhere. But in Season 3, we got a weapon that actually made you feel that way permanent. You basically couldn't step outside without getting burned. When the charge rifle came out in Season 3, it was unlike any other sniper we'd ever seen. The most important thing to know is that it was a hit scan weapon. In Apex, usually when you shoot a sniper, you have to aim a little bit ahead of the enemy. If they're running, you have to predict where they're gonna be. But with the original charge rifle, the beam was instant. If your crosshair was on them, you hit them. There was no travel time, you just pointed the button and clicked. The range was infinite too. Today, if you shoot someone from really far away, there's bullet drop, so you have to be skilled. But back then, you could stand on top of a building and zap someone halfway across the map. It also used energy ammo, not sniper ammo, and this was a huge deal because you could carry stacks and stacks of energy ammo, but not as much sniper ammo. And the charge rifle consumed way less ammo as well. So with the actual good energy mag, you're basically shooting like 7 or 8 times before having to reload. Next up is the care package Mastiff, and I'm talking about the original care package Mastiff from the very beginning of the game, Season 0 to Season 5. If you play Apex now, you know that care package weapons are red, but back in Season 0 to 4, they were gold. And if you saw that gold shotgun, you knew you were gonna win. This version of the Mastiff was basically a handheld bazooka. Today, a shotgun is good for finishing people off, but back then, it was a one-shot machine. If you hit someone in the body with all pellets, it dealt 144 damage. That's almost enough to break the best armor in the game by itself. But if you aim for the head, it dealt 288 damage. Let's think about that number real quick. 288. Even with the best armor and a helmet, nobody survives that. You could have a Gibraltar with full health and a gun shield, and one click from this Mastiff would send him to the Shadow Realm. This thing was terrifying to play against, and if you turned a corner and heard that loud Mastiff boom, you're probably dead before you even saw the enemy. It was rare to find one, but if you did, you felt invincible, and it truly deserved to be called a legendary weapon. The gold Mastiff was rare, and you felt lucky if you were able to find one, but our next weapon was lying on the ground in almost every single building, and it hit almost as hard. If you played in season 26, you remember the sound of the Peacekeeper charging up, and you remember somebody peeking from a corner for less than 2 seconds and deleting half of your health bar, because this thing fully charged did 110 damage just for a body shot. You gotta think about that. You didn't even need to aim for somebody's head. You just had to hit them in the chest and boom, over 100 of their health is gone in one click. And if you had blue armor, that's 2 body shots before you're dead. What made this worse is that choke mechanic on the Peacekeeper. When you ADS, the crosshair gets super small and it allows the pellets to focus on one point. So you could deal 110 damage immediately from like 20 meters away. This was absolutely ridiculous, and it made all of the SMGs and a bunch of other shotguns completely useless, because why do anything when you can peek and deal 110 damage? This gun was the king of close range fights for all of season 26, and honestly, if you weren't running a PK in season 26, you're just making the game harder for yourself. Usually if you hear the saying, don't bring a knife to a gunfight, you'd agree, but this doesn't apply to the Buster Sword, because for a couple of weeks, the strongest weapon in the game wasn't a gun at all. It was a giant sword. During the Final Fantasy event, you could pick up the Buster Sword as a real weapon. This wasn't just a skin for your melee attack. It took up a slot in your inventory and replaced one of your guns. It was completely broken. First of all, it had a block ability. If you held the aim button, you would hold the sword up in front of you and it blocked a huge chunk of damage. Your enemy could empty an entire Spitfire magazine into your sword and you just walk them down. But what really made it worse was the limit break ability. As you fought, a meter would fill up, and when it was full, you could activate a super mode basically. You moved faster, you took less damage, and you could swing the sword wildly. This basically allowed you to dash around the map and put your enemies in combos like a madman. And if you had the Buster Sword in a small final circle, you pretty much won the game immediately. The Buster Sword was a crazy limited time item that didn't feel like it belonged in the game. But this next weapon has been here since day one, and in the beginning, it was arguably even more broken than the sword. If you ask any player who's been around since the start what the scariest gun was, they will all say the same thing: the Season 0 Wingman. Today, the Wingman is a weapon that takes a lot of skill. You gotta aim carefully, and if you miss, you get punished. But when the game first came out, it was a spam machine. First of all, it fired way faster than it does now. You could pull the trigger as fast as you could click. The hipfire shooting without zooming in was perfectly accurate. You could just strafe left and right, tapping the fire button and hit like every shot. Then there's the magazine size. Nowadays a Wingman holds maybe 9 bullets if you have a good mag. Back then it held 12 bullets. That is a lot of chances to hit somebody for 45 damage. You could wipe out a whole squad without ever reloading. And we can't even forget the skull piercer hop up. If you found this attachment and hit a headshot, the Wingman did over 100 damage instantly. Also remember that back then it used heavy ammo, not sniper ammo. This meant that you could carry hundreds of bullets in your backpack without running out. It was a pistol that shot like a sniper, was as fast as an SMG, and had enough ammo to fight forever. It was the ultimate weapon, and nothing else even came close. The Wingman was scary because it rewarded players who had perfect aim, but in season 2, the developers added something that was scary for a totally different reason. You didn't need perfect aim. You just needed one specific attachment. Usually the Alternator is considered a starter weapon. You pick it up, hold it for a few minutes, and swap it for something better. But in season 2, that changed completely. The developers added a hop-up called Disruptor Rounds. This attachment made the bullets deal massive bonus damage to shields. Let's look at the specific numbers because they were honestly ridiculous. On release, the Disruptor Rounds had a damage multiplier of 2.26. Here's what that means. A normal Alternator shot did 15 damage to the body, but if you hit a shield with the disruptors, the damage jumped up to 34 damage per bullet. If purple armor has 100 health, with this weapon, you only had to hit 3 bullets to completely break someone's shield. 3 shots. And since the Alternator fires pretty fast, you could strip a player of all their armor in a split second. It melted through defenses faster than any other gun in the game. Anyway, that's a complete runback of some of Apex's most busted weapons to ever touch the game. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe now. We post videos like this 3 times a week. Also, shout out to Otter. I got this video's thumbnail idea from his similar video.